Okay, here we are. We're back again for round two. So, anyone that's say coming back? Unfortunately, I had to shut down the previous. Um, I had to shut down the previous live stream. Unfortunately, due to idiots trying to hijack the stream um, by throwing around gay porn. But here we go. I really need to learn my bloody lesson with this. Oh, here we go. So we're starting up again. And yeah, so welcome back to Prestige Liquids. So, as I was about to start getting into, so here we have the mermaid. Oh, Vin, nice to have you in, mate. Um, let's see. Mate, if you're, sorry, let's see. What am I doing? Not very prepared at all. Very unprofessional. Okay, yep, good. That's 100% correct. Time for take two. Guys, if you have, say, 5 minutes to spare and you would like to join in, then please feel free. There's a link in the description box. Come and say hi. It'll be nice to be able to have a chat with you all. Um, yeah, so if you're up for it, like I said, link is there. Join in. Hopefully, we will not be having any other intruders. I think from this point on for this chat, though, I will not be bringing in anybody that I don't know. So, yeah. Okay, so Vin's pretending to work like a legend. uh, Greg, what do you got saying? Hi again. Meanwhile, I've added you in my channel as a mod just to let you know. Uh, yeah, intruders. So, about just over 5 minutes ago, I was getting in. I was just about to start getting into the review. I had these people coming into the chats. I should have known from previous mistakes that I have made. Um, they were, I guess, users that I wasn't familiar with. They came in, um, excuse me, to say take part in the live stream. Brought them in, started chatting, and then before you know it, they bring up a laptop containing gay porn. So yeah, that's apparently what I'm that's apparently what I'm promoting at the moment. So yeah. So I quickly closed down that other stream and now we're up to take two. So yeah, I'm sorry, Gert. I didn't mean to expose you to all this, but hey, the internet is the internet, and unfortunately, yeah, just full of idiots. Thankfully, though, all of you are wonderful people, and I can trust you to behave. Yeah, wowzers, wowzer is correct. I would like to say that this was the first time that it's happened. Oh, I've been burnt before, but yeah. So, as I was when I started the first live stream, I had this in the glass. So these three bottles here. Let's see. I got a vodka, a gin, and the mermaid single malt whiskey. So these okay, so these say particular spirits have come from a recently opened Australian distillery. I happen to know the distiller quite well, and so last week he put out a notice to say that he was doing his official launch for his distillery, and it just so happened to turn out that um, yeah, it happened to turn out that I had that weekend off, so I quickly made my plans. I made sure that nobody at work would bother me. Um, so yeah, I took my 3 hour drive from Sydney to excuse me, I did my 3 hour drive from Sydney to Braidwood to visit this distillery. And yeah, so I was able to I guess experience my first distillery opening, and it was also the first time that I have. This is actually the first distillery that I have actually visited. Now, Gavin, the head distiller, he was previously in the Navy, so uh, it doesn't really show, unfortunately, say I with the vodka, but um, or on the gin. He does have other gin releases where he has used nautical themes to, I guess, that's the kind of like the theme of the distillery. Um, but this one, his first single malt is the Mermaid. I believe that the actual artwork itself was created by a local artist. I don't know her name, unfortunately. Oh, here we go. It's on the bottle. Her name is Leva Gugite. But yeah, that's her artwork there on the label. Now, one of the awesome things about this particular release was when I arrived at the distillery, I turned up quite early, um, way before the event was starting off. So I said, "Put me to work." So what was I doing? Labeling bottles. I lost count of how many bottles of whiskey and gin that I had labeled. But the awesome thing was that I was able to label my own particular bottle. Told me to pick a number. We went with 89 being my birth year. And yeah, so this is bottle number 89 of 637, bottled at 48% ABV, 500 ml bottle, and it is using second fill French oak casks. Um, yeah, so time to get on with this review. Before I do get started, though, I think Greg, you are right. I think I'm gonna have to try and start picking some moderators. I don't know how they go though with using StreamYards though. And yes, I do definitely need to be a bit more prudent. Unfortunately, this kind of thing has happened a bit too often, but maybe it's done. Yeah, but moving along, let's get on with this tasting. So, on the nose. So it's very vibrant, it's very fresh. It has a certain malty eucalyptus vibe going on. Tons of honey, a little bit of white pepper, but it's not as intense as what I'd normally get from, say, from French oak casks. Normally, when I have had whiskies that have been aged in French oak, normally those white pepper notes are a lot more prominent. But being that this is a second fill cask, I guess some of that intensity has probably been stripped back. Oh, yeah, this is a great comment here, Greg. When will we be seeing a Prestige Liquid's own barrel pick? I don't know. I might have to look into that. It might be something that I will be able to do, though I don't know how much it will cost me. Yeah, Vin was saying YouTube mods won't be able to help with StreamYard. Okay, let's get rid of this banner. Yeah, I think in general, Greg, the mods for YouTube tend to, I think, really be linked only to like the actual YouTube website itself. I guess StreamYards I guess it's kind of like a what's the word that I'm looking for? Like a second party kind of thing, I suppose. So it probably makes it a bit harder. But in answer to your question before, Greg, yeah, I would love to be able to do a barrel pick, but like I said, I don't really have the the funds to do that at the moment. There's also a touch of like a mineral saltiness that's coming through. Green grass, also like freshly turned earth as well. It's kind of like when you're digging in when you're digging into your garden and you're yeah, and you just get that smell of like wet, freshly turned earth. Ah, Edward, nice to have you in, mate. Long time no see. Mate, what am I drinking? Good question. Today I am drinking the Mermaid from Holdfast Distillery. They Holdfast. It's a New South Wales, a newly opened New South Wales distillery. All right, what else can we pick from here? Okay, so there's quite a bit of like a sweet barrel char. Yeah, it definitely smells like sweet charcoal. And now that I've kind of pinpointed that note, it kind of feels like the rest of the flavor profile is kind of working its way around that. So you've got this sweet charcoal note, and then around it is all like the other notes. More vanilla and caramel are starting to come through. Raisins, apples. It really is quite amazing as to how much this is starting to open up. All right, let's get onto the palate, see how we go. So, cheers. Mm, it is good stuff. Again, that barrel char is very prominent. What else? Okay, so that white pepper prickle is definitely a lot more prominent at the moment than what it was on the nose. On the tongue, it's quite tingly. It's doing those nice little alcohol evaporation dance. I love that feeling. Never get tired of it. Mm. Vin did barrel picks on a special program, and I did blend cask to create new reference for a distillery. But I think there might be other ways to process a cask selection worth digging into. Yeah, well, definitely. One thing that helps is that I do know the distiller, and I've gotten to know him quite well. So I think if I am wanting to do some kind of collaboration, uh, it would he would definitely Gavin would definitely be the best person to do that. I think he will be right on board with it. Okay, but yeah, let's see what other notes are we getting on the palette. All right, so yeah, I already mentioned that barrel char, the pepper is there, but the oak as well is definitely having. There's a lot of wood influence coming on here. The mouthfeel kind of starts off quite syrupy, and then it just dries out. It's like you feel the moisture just being and then gone, and then it all comes back again. So it takes you on a bit of a roller coaster ride for the mouthfeel department. Anyway, much of the flavor again is pretty much similar to what I was also getting on the nose. Again, your orchard fruits, apples, pears. Though I'm also starting to get things like orange rind. Um, yeah, definitely orange and lemon rind. It does have that citric influence. Um, and then again, the pepper spice just keeps coming through and playing around and doing its thing. Now, as far as I know, this is a non-peated whiskey, uh, but the influence that the char is having on the actual spirit itself is creating like these waves of smoky flavors that are coming through. So, although it may not be peated, it definitely has a smoky influence to it. But this, to me, is tasting very Australian. And I don't think that's something that you would be able to fully comprehend unless you have experienced Australian bushfires and you know what the smell of like things like eucalyptus, like the smell of burning eucalyptus and things like that kind of smells like, and Australian forests. Um, it's yeah, that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting from it. Of course, I'm sure if the rest of you were trying this as well, you would probably describe it as your own, say, like British forest fires or say even French forest fires. I'm sure a whole bunch of foliage just burning and smoldering away probably smells quite similar everywhere. But to me, it is definitely tasting like an Australian smoke. Well, you liking the sound of this one, mate? It is a very enjoyable whiskey, I have to admit. For his first release, I have to say, done a very good job on this. Excuse me. The finish actually lingers really well. Again, quite sweet, lots of honey and vanilla. Um, there's also like these like dark chocolate some notes coming through that are also very enjoyable. Looks like we've got some more people trying to come in, but let's see, we just quickly booted them out. So, yeah, anybody that's trying to come in that I don't know will not be accepted into the live stream. I am learning lessons. Edward, you're asking, am I picking up, let's say, like Aussie bush and eucalyptus? Yeah, I am. Um, I am actually very curious to see how much of our, say, like our bushland environment, um, how much of that would impact the overall flavor of the whiskey. One experiment I wish that I would be able to do, but unfortunately I doubt that I ever would be to take, say, new make spirit, I guess, from, or yeah, maybe not so much even new make spirit, but or it would have to be new make, I suppose. New make spirit that has just been put into a cask from multiple countries, whether it's a England, uh, Scotland, America, Japan, whatever. Bring those casks to Australia, throw them in the bush, and then after, say, about 2 or 3 years going by, say, the Australian whiskey standards, to see our to see how our environment would affect the maturation, um, might be, quite a valid experiment. Oh, lots of red apples coming through on the nose as well. Actually, Edward, going back to your comment about the Australian bush and eucalyptus, um, mate, if you, um, I don't know if you've seen this review yet, but go back and check out my review of the Manly Spirits Co. bourbon cask whiskey, and that to me shows a really good influence of like Australian bushland and coastal elements. Yeah, D hi S. Yeah, but at the moment, I'm not bringing in anybody into the live stream comments that I do not know. So yeah, that's why you weren't brought in. Too many bad experiences at the moment. Okay. So also other flavors coming through, starting to get a little bit of like licorice or star anise. Um, it just keeps changing. I'm also starting to get, I think, what are they called? I can't even remember what we call them here. Like kind of like raspberry twists, or I think in America they call them Twizzlers. I'm starting to get that kind of influence. There's this like candied sweetness that's coming in that, yeah, very unusual. That's one thing that I have to say that I do enjoy about doing these kind of tastings on live streams versus doing them for an actual review is that I get to, I guess, spend a little bit more time with the actual whiskey when I review it or when I do a tasting of it on a live stream. And then all these random things just start to come into your head, and yeah, you just come up with all these different ideas. Whereas when I sit down to do an actual, like a proper review, I'm kind of just going on the fly. Whatever notes I'm getting are the notes that I'm getting there and then. I don't really draw out that time to, I guess, go into the detail that I normally would, say, for doing, say, something like this on a live stream. Now with Greg and Vin, I'm even Gert, if you're still in the chat, I'd be very curious to see if you guys also have like a similar experience to that, or do you guys kind of go into your reviews, I guess, fully loaded with all your information and obviously spending more time with the whiskey before you do your review. I kind of just go all in. Okay, Edward, you're asking what is the ABV? Mate, the ABV is, I don't know. Let's see if you can get it. I have mentioned this quite a few times in my streams before. It is in within my favorite ABV thing. So that can be the quiz at the moment. I'll give you guys about a minute to respond. What is my favorite ABV? And go. So I'll keep going with this for now. You guys tell me what the ABV is. You know what? I'm going to pour a little bit more in, and then I'll also add a drop of water and see how this goes. Oh, Gert gets in first, and he's on the money, 48%. Um, that is correct. think I better have some water. Yeah, I know you've mentioned this before, Vin, that like you said, with a lot of the reviews, the actual review itself is a lot of like the smoke and mirrors most of the times that we do have like all our notes prepared and whatnot, and um we're just pretty much going into um yeah, we already know what we're going to be saying about the whiskey. We're just there, kind of hold the glass, nose, yeah, get this, get that, drink, get this, get that, and then end video. Yeah, Greg, I mean, I know you do. I think Greg takes preparation to a whole new level, definitely. And of course, tasting live is less, or for you, you do say less in depth for for your live videos. Yeah, I just feel I don't know about you guys, but I know, say for myself, when I do live streams, kind of once I get over the initial like startup period, I just start to relax and then I just get into it, and I guess I become a bit more comfortable, and then I just start saying whatever comes to mind. So that's when all the weird and wonderful kind of tasting notes come through. Now, as far as I know, this is non-chill filtered and natural colored. One thing that I did notice when I poured the water in was that you could actually start to see the um, like the oils like separating a little bit in the glass. So that was a nice little effect. Of course, speaking of color, that's it there. It's a really nice, soft, like golden straw. Yeah. And there's my mug behind it, all distorted. This person is clearly trying to slide into my stream. Oh yeah, good. You're in terms of like actual doing proper reviews, you are right on that. I think people do prefer to use Vin's name, a more no nonsense approach. But even still, with that, they're going to find ways to complain. Yeah, the live streams definitely do allow that more open discussion. I really am. So this is with the water now. I really am enjoying the just that just the smell of the smoke and the barrel char. Oh, so I think this is where I may get even closer to nailing this smoky touch. It's it's like walking into a sauna. Uh, yeah, you walk into the sauna, you can smell like the wood of the benches. If the sauna itself is a wood fired one, then you definitely get the again. Yeah, you definitely get um like that smoky burnt wood influence that you kind of get when you walk into a sauna. Did you send me that DM on? I let's see what Greg sent. Sorry, I'll be back. Let me be a bit. Yeah, cheers for that, Greg. Look, I'm not taking like any risks. I've blocked them for now. Um, I don't really like doing that, but yeah, unfortunately, I've been burnt a bit too much. So, thanks for being my moderator. Mm. Edward, I knew you would pick up on that. Yeah, again, it's weird. It's like, yeah, that's a sauna smell right there. I'm also starting to get some more like milk chocolate. There's definitely, yeah, milk chocolate and more of like these malty notes that are coming in, musky books, wet cardboard, that kind of thing. Y- Sorry, Greg. Yeah. Um, Again, the saltiness is still there. It definitely does have that soft, salty element. James, welcome to the chat, mate. All right, what else are we getting on the palette now? Again, that's adding the water, the oak has intensified, so has the pepper. For those of you just coming in now, um, so the casks used for this particular release are second fill French oak. So now, after adding the water in, it is definitely start. It has intensified the oak and the white pepper spice. I didn't really get that as intensely when I first poured this, but now, yeah, adding the water has definitely brought those flavors to the forefront. Again, more honey, vanilla, burnt caramel kind of going on now as well. A little bit wheaty as well, kind of like a for all you Aussies in the chat. It's like wheat bix, though. Of course, being a liquid, this is not going to dry your throat out when you drink it. Mm. So, for those of you in the chat now, how are we going? Is there what do we want to talk about? Throw some ideas. What are you wanting to know? Like I said, it's been a while since I've last done a live stream. Again, I think it's been probably about just over 2 weeks as well since I last did an actual review. Which, speaking of, this particular whiskey will most likely be my next official review. But I guess you guys get to be here for I guess for my first actual introduction of it, and you get to see the full in-depth vibe. I guess I'll probably be taking a few of these notes over to I guess when I do the official review as well. Oh, good question. What is your daily sipper? One that you'll always order in the pub. That's the downside to being in Australia, really. When you go to a pub, um, what's going yeah, the whiskey choices at a pub in Australia aren't very elaborate. You pretty much have these options: Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Johnny Walker, and Glenfiddich. Um, if you're lucky, they may have some other options available, though you are most better off to go and find a whiskey bar that actually has a much larger variety of whiskeys. But to answer your question, look, in general, I don't really have an everyday sipper. And I think this is something that Vin would kind of agree with as well with me on this, that because we do this as, say, when we do like reviewing like whiskeys and discovering new whiskeys, a lot of the time our main reason for doing this is to discover and find new whiskeys. So I've kind of always found myself not really going and buying the same bottle over and over again. But to answer your question, the bottles that I have returned to constantly have been things like, say, the Wild Turkey Long Branch. I've probably finished, say, about 4 or 5 bottles of that. That is one that I always find myself going back to. At the moment, the Starwood Twofold is definitely something that I will continue to have available on me all the time. Unfortunately, at the moment, I did recently finish a bottle, so I do have to replenish my stock. But that is definitely one of those whiskeys where it is a perfect sipper, but it's also very versatile to be used in cocktails and things like that. And that has been one way that I've really been enjoying that lately um, is to actually be playing around with the whiskey. So recently with the Starwood Twofold, I've been using like the Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic water, um, and that has been going perfectly with it. I'm just trying to think. Lafroig was one that the Lafroig 10, that was again another whiskey that I always used to go through. I haven't bought a bottle of that for quite a while. I will probably have to go back to it. But I did find myself starting to get a little bit bored of it, which is quite unfortunate because it was a gateway whiskey for me. It was one of the first whiskeys that I tried that really made me stand up and take notice and be like, damn, this is whiskey. This is a good whiskey. But once you start to try, say, more things, unfortunately, it kind of got a little bit left behind. For me, I'll have to say the Lafroig 10 for me has kind of gone a little bit similar along the ways of the Glenlivet 12. It is a nice whiskey, it's a good quality whiskey, but at the same time, sometimes it gets a little bit boring. So going back to this whiskey, Edward, you were asking, or you were saying, sorry, that this sounds rather complex for an Aussie whiskey. Do they have an age statement? No, this doesn't have an age statement on it, although it is at least the minimum of 2 years. Um, but one thing that you should keep in mind, though, that in general, the majority of Australian whiskies are extremely complex. They are generally not well, at least for me personally, they are not a subtle style of whiskey. They are very complex. There's a lot of layers and a lot of depth. I think the one thing that normally puts off a lot of people is the fact that since they are mostly aged in red wine casks, I find that kind of throws off a lot of people. But there are very a lot of levels to Australian whiskies and different stages of complexity. Some can be very intense. Others are just extremely well balanced. I mean, as an example, the Craftworks whiskies that I have reviewed in the past. Man, those are outright knock you out, punch you in the face style of whiskies. But then once you get past that initial shock, the complexity and depth and layers that you get in that whiskey are amazing. Florio is another one. Even though they are a bit more of a softer style whiskey, the complexity is definitely there. So yeah, I wouldn't really say that Australian whiskies are not complex because I don't think that's true at all. I have Behind the Bar. That's another great channel. Let's see, what else have we got here? Yep, 100%. Doing whiskey reviews are an expensive hobby. Ballpark, how much do you spend on whiskey for reviews? Oh, well, as an example, that depends on I should depends on what kind of whiskey that we're talking now. Most imported whiskies, so entry level bourbons, you're looking at about for at least for something decent, you're looking at anywhere between $60 to $80, and that will get you something pretty decent. So that's things along the lines of like different wild turkey ranges, Evan Williams, what else? Woodford Reserve, Maker's Mark, all those kind of things. So for that price point, you can get, say, some pretty decent bourbons. Scotches, again, you can still find some pretty decent whiskies within that $60 to $80 price range, though they will be a little bit more hit and miss. Unfortunately, the ones that I want to focus on and the ones that cost me the most money are these beautiful little devils right here. Now, for most, for I have to say, for most of these, Australian whiskies are usually released in 500 ml bottles, and they're going on average, say, between $120 to $150 for the bottles. So, yeah, I really don't want to dive into much of how much money I've spent on whiskies over the years, I should say. Yeah, it is a big money pit, but it's something that brings a lot of enjoyment, and it also allows me to hang out and meet new people such as you, wonderful folk. Sid Finch, welcome to the chat, mate. I think it's the first time I've seen you here. I think it's getting a little bit hot now. Time to take this off. But just sorry, bear with me for a minute, people. Okay, that's a bit better. All right. So Greg is saying there is a lot of choice now in Australian whiskey, even if I haven't accessed the majority of them here, but only say 3 or 4 brands. Yeah, excuse me. For most of the things that you would have available there would be very limited. You would really only have things like Starward and some of the other like bigger brands, but the amount of distilleries that we have popping up, it's endless. It's like every time you jump onto Facebook, onto like an Australian distillers like page, there's a new distillery coming up. There's a new one that's coming up. This one has just laid down their first cast. This one's just released their latest whiskey. Um, yeah, there's a lot of whiskies available that will definitely be keeping. Um, I've lost his name. What's the whiskey Bibles guy's name? Yeah, they'll definitely be keeping him busy for some time. Yep, Greg, definitely true. We'll probably need a second bank account just for that lot. And picking a whiskey to do a video is a nice but expensive excuse. Oh, it's all for research and science, of course. So you say you're a graduate of Ralphie's Integrity School, and I simply refuse to buy anything that is not a bargain. So all is good. Oh, that's fair enough. But then, of course, everybody's idea of a bargain is different. Do specialized bars made in cocktails and spirits, not just a regular coffee. To Aussie craft whiskies to help promote local stuff or stick to classics you mentioned? Good question. I'll say if you are in the area, like in a specific area where a distillery is located, then yes, they will be most likely to be to supporting their local distilleries or wineries and things like that. They definitely will do that. Um, Unfortunately, for where I live, though, that doesn't happen. You will only really be getting the main, say, the major known brands, and again, those are mostly always going to be some type of well-known Scotch, bourbon, those kind of things. It will definitely be very unlikely to be getting an Australian whiskey, unfortunately. Um, it's only been, well, even say for myself, I mean, at the moment, I work in a liquor store, and it's only been since the last San Francisco Spirits Awards where people have actually started coming into the store that I work in and asking for Starward specifically. Now, when you consider how big of a brand, say for whiskey, Starward is in Australia, and you're only just having people coming up now and asking in my kind of store, if we have it available, just goes to show that the marketing is not really being done very well or in a way that is more noticeable for people. Sorry, guys, just having to moderate my chats. Ah, Jim Murray, that's the name. Thank you, good. I knew it was a Murray. I just had the wrong one. Edward, mate, as always, thank you for joining in, and I shall see you again next time. I don't think I'll be keeping this going much longer. Um, I may just pour one last drink and then we'll see how we go. So, all right, have a good night. Okay, let's rinse this out. And let's All right, Greg, again, mate, thank you for joining in. As always, it's a pleasure having you here. And I'll see you next time. So have a good night or a good day. Have fun at work. Okay, so I'm going to pour one last little drink. Is there anything else any of you would like to have a chat about before I sign off? Sorry, guys, I have to be unsocial again. Okay, so yeah, at the moment, I just poured a glass of the Singleton 12-year-old. Now, again, the Singleton, well, at least for the 12-year-old, another good budget whiskey. Nothing amazing, but again, a very enjoyable whiskey. I will say though that I do actually prefer the Maltmaster Select. I think that was a lot nicer than this. Um, don't get me wrong, this is still a very enjoyable whiskey, but I do much prefer the Maltmaster Select. And the fact as well that it's cheaper makes it a lot more enjoyable. But yeah, the nose on this is just so fruity. It's like a basket of apples and pears, a little bit of lemon, honey. It's definitely very well balanced. Right, the Sid, going back to your comment here, if you are able to get a bottle of the Glenlivet Najura, I definitely recommend it. It is a beautiful whiskey. A couple of years ago, I actually had the Najura Oloroso. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, see now this kind of just tastes like a mixture of honey and water after having that the previous Australian whiskey. Not as I should have picked something else. I think I needed to should have gone for something peated. Yeah, I have to say I've got a bottle of the High Commissioner here. Um, a very like bottom shelf budget whiskey down here, as I'm sure it is in the UK as well. But I have to say it is a pretty damn good blended whiskey for what you're paying. Um, it is definitely one of those whiskeys. I think that if you put it in a blind tasting, it definitely hits a lot. I think it definitely hits a lot higher than what it technically should. It is a very enjoyable whiskey. Glen Orkey, I've not tried that before. Though one thing that I am very curious to try. Today, I actually received a sample of this Glencadam 13-year-old. I've never tried any Glencadam before, so this will be the first time that I get to try it. So let me just open this up and see what it smells like at least. It's a very light whiskey, that's for sure. I think everything else that I've had tonight has kind of just overpowered it at the moment. Just as that comment came up, Gert, I was definitely thinking apple, but I will try this properly later on. I might as well show you since you guys are here. I might as well show these with you. These are some other Australian whiskey samples that I have gotten today. Um, so this one's a Batiki Whiskey Co. Obviously, I'm sure all of you are familiar with them. They had done a release with Florio. They are a South Australian distillery that I absolutely love. They are definitely one of my favorite Australian distilleries. That's a 3-year-old whiskey there. Um, this one here is another independent bottling, but this one has been put out by an Australian independent bottler. They are called uh, the Tasmanian Independent Bottlers. Again, this is another Florio release, and this has been aged in sherry cask. The nose, I opened this up earlier before. Oh, and the nose on that is just absolutely stunning. Oh, it's like rich Christmas cake. Stewed fruits. Yum. That's definitely going to be something I am going to enjoy. And the last one, again, is another South Australian distillery. I have not tried this one before, um, but this distillery is called the Tria Prima, and this particular release is called the Bruxa Batch 1, bottled at 46% ABV. And I'm sure, yeah, that smells absolutely stunning as well. A lot of apples on that nose as well. Yeah, I've been very fortunate with getting some samples at the moment, especially like with a lot of like other like Australian whiskey drinkers. They've been able to send me samples of whiskies from other Australian distilleries that I normally wouldn't be able to get my hands on. Unfortunately, some of them are just so expensive and out of my reach that I really need to be sensible. Some of those bottles are going for like $200 plus, and unfortunately, I just can't afford that kind of money for these whiskeys as much as I would love to. Okay, so now after it's kind of sat for a little bit, the proper flavor of the Singleton is starting to come through, and it's not getting overpowered by the mermaid before. All right, everybody. I think it's kind of getting time to wrap it up. Um, for those of you who stayed from part one all the way through part two of this live stream, again, thank you for, I guess, putting up with the nonsense that was going on before. Unfortunately, these things happen. I'm not happy about it. It does really annoy me, but due to my own stupidity, I should learn of who to bring up on these videos. But I'll get there eventually. Um, so yeah, again, thank you for joining in, and hopefully on the next live stream, it will be smooth sailing. There won't be any mishaps, and yeah, we'll all have a very enjoyable time. But again, yeah, thank you all for joining in, and I shall see you all again on the next video. Give this.